Rob Edwards, now set to be appointed the new Wolves manager on a 3.5-year deal. What's the background to this? Edwards is set to become the new Wolves boss after compensation reportedly agreed with Middlesbrough. Now, Middlesbrough initially turned down an approach for Edwards on Thursday from Wolves, but things changed on Friday when his pre-match press conference was cancelled and he missed training. Hours before the match with Birmingham on Saturday, Edwards was stood down from the game. It wasn't like that when talk of Edwards in the same conversation as Wolves first came up, and Rob Edwards pretty much shut it down.
I was told by my daughter yesterday, so that probably tells you where I can understand it. You know, my links to the club, but look, my full focus is on this job here, which is a brilliant job, and trying to turn things around from the weekend in a really big game against Leicester.
I suppose something like that, though, is a bit of a compliment for the work that you and the players have done so far. The fact you're linked with a Premier League job.
Again, it's hard to. It's all like, again, speculation stuff. It's hard for me to then comment about anything else other than Middlesbrough Football Club, which is where my focus is. That we've done a decent job so far. You know, that's all I care about, is trying to win tomorrow.
Just for the record, Edwards was appointed by Middlesbrough in the summer on a 3-year deal. He left Luton in January with the club 20th in the Championship. So Middlesbrough have been putting out statements. We initially rejected an approach from Wolves on the basis that Rob signed a 3-year deal with the club less than 6 months ago. Following discussions with Rob, we were disappointed to learn that he wanted to speak with Wolves regarding their head coach vacancy. We've now agreed terms with Wolves, subject to the completion of the relevant paperwork. Simon, sad to say, you'd be a fool not to have predicted the outcome in this.
You would like to think that someone that was given an opportunity would have a little bit more integrity, and he doesn't. And so he's gone to Wolves, and I would imagine the circumstances for Middlesbrough was one of disbelief initially, similar to my situation with Steve Bruce all those years ago in Birmingham. Middlesbrough have got some built-in protections that ultimately means that Wolves can't come along and take him without paying anything, which is what Birmingham tried to do via David Sullivan, which they got stopped doing. But they would have been disappointed, because then they would not have been surprised that Wolves making overtures to their manager. What they would have looked for is their manager to have done precisely what he did in his press conference, which is basically distance himself from that particular opportunity and remind himself in the full glaze of the public domain that he was actually in a good job. And of course, then what he's done is he's done the atypical thing that most managers do, which is, but I'd like to go and have a chat with them. Once he said that to Middlesbrough, once you've said, well, actually, I'd like to go and have a chat with them, then where do you go from there? Is
it idealistic, though, Simon, to suggest that he owed Middlesbrough anything?
Of course he did. If Middlesbrough fired him, they have to pay him. If they fired him, they gave him a 3-year contract. Now, that would have been caveated slightly, so they didn't have to pay the full 3 years if he was a roaring failure. But they would have had to pay him something. In this instance, they brought him in, they gave him a job on the back of the fact that, you know, I remember watching him, with due respect to him, I think he did remarkably well to get Luton promoted. I watched a documentary that he was part of, and I came away with a completely different impression of him than I had originally. I thought he was a bit of a flake. And of course, last year, Luton's team dropped into the relegation zone and got relegated. So he's lucky to get a great job like Middlesbrough, working for a great chairman like Steve Gibson, who's been unequivocal in his support of Middlesbrough for 30 years. And now he's going to go to a club that I think is a crap job, quite frankly. I think they're in free fall. I think they don't have a squad of players that's going to keep them in the Premier League. I don't think they have a culture motivated to be able to give managers the kind of support that they need on the field, because all their best players are being sold left, right and centre because they've got to fulfil different outcomes than perhaps the original motivation of Fosun and their ownership model.
But could you not argue,
I hope he gets what he deserves.
Could you not? And what do you think he deserves?
I hope Wolves get relegated and he goes down with them and suffers a consequence of it. Because people will say, he'll point to, no doubt, well, look what happened to me at Watford. I was there for 4 months, they were 10th in the league, I got bombed. But you know that going into Watford. Watford is a freak show of management. It does itself. It's not the model that most people would look at and think was a wonderful way to run a football club, having 107 managers in 10 years.
But Simon, at Wolves, could Vitor Pereira not have expected to be treated better?
Well, I mean, again, Vitor Pereira...
He could argue, they offered me a new deal, I took it, I agreed to it, and there was a long-term project, 6 weeks later I'm out.
And the consequence of that is for Wolves, really, isn't it? Because Wolves left to pay him. So Wolves took a decision to give a guy a 3-year job and ultimately 45 days later decided to fire him. But they won't get out of it scot-free. The manager gets out of it scot-free. What happens when a manager leaves a football club, in terms of these sort of situations, they leave it with a challenge. Because if you fire a manager, first of all, you never want to fire a manager because it's a major problem. So it's always a problem when you fire a manager. Second of all, once you fire a manager, because normally they're not doing very well, you have all the ramifications of having to pay them financially. So you don't get out of it scot-free. When a manager leaves a football club after 5 minutes, right, having had investment put into him and the players that he bought and the backroom staff, all of a sudden what happens is they come back and pillage the backroom staff, they come back and pillage the playing squad, and they cause uproar for doing it, and they get and there's no consequence to them. So as an owner, I know I'd be in this camp. As an owner, I fire someone for their failings. I've still got to pay them. A manager gets a light shine on them because I gave them a stage in which they can rage, and they leave and they affect me twice.
This really gets your goat, doesn't it?
I just think it's a lack of decency and a lack of integrity. I do.
Do you agree, Martin? I mean, is there anything wrong in your eyes, Martin, with managers looking after number one first? Is that what Rob Edwards has done?
You know, it's disappointing. I've not been in this situation myself, but look, why not become the Middlesbrough story? Look how the North East is starting to come back now. You're seeing Sunderland. This is his club. This is his story. Stay with it. The Wolves story is not his.
Yeah, but they're arguing that Wolves is his club. He was there as a player.
Yeah, but they just lost 9 games out of 11. Can you see what? Can you actually see that there's anything there for you? Over the period, they've lost Cunha, Neto, Fabian Silva, and Nori. They're just, what they're doing, Jim, they're just sifting through their players, taking all the good players out, and now the players that have come in aren't at the same level. He's doomed to be relegated.
Wolves fans going for your throat. There's Joe Clark. If Wolves are a crap job, what should we do in Simon's opinion? Not hire a manager, since our owners aren't going to leave?
What's that got to do with the conversation?
Does that mean we deserve relegation?
I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about Rob Edwards and Rob Edwards' decision-making process.
But you called it a crap job.
Because I think it is a crap job in comparison.
They're a Premier League club.
I think the Wolves fans should think about maybe he's not doing the honourable thing and he could walk from Wolves. Supposing he gets them out of trouble, does he walk from Wolves again then, this time next year?
How many managers do the honourable thing?
But go to the question of what you were saying. Well, every man... The framing of the question...
We call it an industry that's full of disloyalty.
The framing of question is probably slightly disingenuous because every manager has the right to leave a football club when they've earned that right. What has he earned at Middlesbrough besides being given a job, backed and supported in it, made adjustments for, and the moment they get some success and some whiff of success via them,
it's not all managers.
He's off.
I've seen Kieran McKenna stay at the Ipswich
and
job.
that's why it's refreshing.
There are people that do it, Jim, actually.
And that's why it's refreshing. And people will respect them more for it, I can assure you.
Yeah,
bigger
but
jobs.
Well, financially remunerated for that very decision.
Yeah, but he probably deserves that.
More than 3 promotions.
None of them are going down a food bank. They've all financially well remunerated. So none of them are in a situation where they're not being rewarded. It's about having some real thinking about the here and now against the bigger picture.
Do you feel for Steve Gibson here, Simon? Is he totally helpless in this situation?
Yeah, ultimately. I mean, yes, he is. I mean, you put a manager on a contract, you put a release clause in there from a compensation criteria, along comes, I hope they've had to pay. And I don't. And the point that the caller's making about Wolves, of course, he should be committed to his football club, and of course, he should be taking the observation. Well, who are we supposed to employ? But I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about Rob Edwards, and what Rob Edwards' opportunity was. He had the opportunity to say, "I'm a man of substance. I signed a 3-year deal. Everything is going the way I thought it was going to go. We're top of the league. We're doing very well. And a guy that took me off the scrap heap." Which is where he was at that time. You'd relegated Luton from the Premier League, and you had now relegated Luton back into League One. So your currency wasn't that high, mate.
Jim, I think he regrets this. I think eventually he regrets this because he could have stayed at Middlesbrough and he could have taken them up, and that would have been a massive story for him. That everyone would have looked at him and gone, "Do you know what? That's down to you."
Or he justifies it in the same way. I mean, I felt.
Well, yeah, he's now in the Premier League. If he takes the job, which he will, and we expect the announcement today, and he keeps Wolves up, which he might. Then it's job done.
Oh, totally.
He won't keep them up.
Totally. I mean, the same thing could have. I mean,
it's a miracle if he does it.
I'm going back to my situation with Brucey. He got Birmingham promoted at the end of the season, so with due respect to him, his treachery was rewarded. And sometimes in football, that is what happens. Yeah, well, it was.
You've forgiven him now. You've forgiven him.
Oh, we're big mates now, but at the time, it was what it was. That's why he got his backside handed to him, metaphorically and literally. But
literally?
Yeah, because he got injuncted in court, didn't he?
There's your B-men, Steve. Enjoy.
But the fact is that it worked for him. And so it's disappointing. And it may well work for Rob Edwards, but it doesn't make it right.
Do you honestly hope that it doesn't work for Rob Edwards?
I hope he gets to learn a big lesson from it, because there's something in life called integrity. And people say that owners don't have it. Owners don't fire managers because it's an easy thing to do.
We're talking about Simon's reaction in the main to the prospect of Rob Edwards leaving Middlesbrough and heading to Wolves. That's in spite of the fact, in Simon's view, that Rob Edwards was given a great opportunity by Steve Gibson up at Middlesbrough, called the whole thing quite vile. There is Michael, Queen's Park Rangers fan in Phuket, faraway Thailand, isn't it? I think that's the pronunciation of it. Anything other would be pretty dangerous. Surely that's Simon's new title, Jim. Your vileness. Only joking. Honestly, love the show. Listen every day. From Phuket in Thailand. Good for you. But what's happening back here? Rob Edwards, due to be announced as the new Wolverhampton Wanderers head coach and leaving Middlesbrough, but leaving him in the lurch, is he? Chris is a big Middlesbrough fan. Chris, good morning. What's your take on all of this?
Good morning, guys. You all right?
Good, thanks, Chris.
Yeah, I'm sort of on the same wavelength as Simon. I think the way he's treated the club, Steve Gibson, and most importantly, the fans, he sort of dragged us all in by what he was saying about us being one big family. We all need to stick together and everything. And honestly, the town, stuck behind and believed these words. So we all got dragged in and we all look a bit stupid now. And I've never wanted a manager to fail so much ever. And I hope he goes down. And I can't even see him lasting the season. I've looked, obviously, with him going to Wolves, I've looked at their next 6-7 fixtures. Don't be surprised if the guy gets bolted out by February, March time, because, and I hope he does, by the way. And the way he's treated us as fans is shambolic.
Chris, what's your next manager coming into? Because you're second at the moment on 29 points, Coventry on 34. So you just hope that the next manager can continue the momentum that, to be fair to Edwards, he has got going there.
Well, you've just sort of took the words out of my mouth there, Jim. He's created this momentum. And he's decided to leave it because I don't get this, my family lives there and all this. I don't buy that. It's 3 hours up the road. It's not in a different country. He's got the town together and he's basically on his first chance. He's walked out. He's walked away from it all, So,
Chris, we take your point and we take your call, and thank you for giving it. Here's James, who's a Wolves fan. James, good morning to you. Rob Edwards on the way, it would seem. Are you going to welcome him with open arms?
Morning, Jim. Morning, Martin.
Morning.
He wasn't my first choice. He wasn't my second choice. Maybe not my third choice, but he's got Wolves connections. He's an ex-Wolves. It's his boyhood club. So
yes,
I want to ask Simon why he wouldn't take the job. He's working with better players. It's a Premier League job at the moment. Maybe not in a couple of months, but it's still a Premier League job.
You'll notice you didn't get a good one.
I noticed that. That's okay.
Martin and I did.
It's a way bigger club. He'll be on better wages, and nothing saying Middlesbrough is guaranteed to be promoted anyway. And if we do get relegated, then he's still at a bigger club with more potential.
Because he was afforded an opportunity. If you wanted him, you could have taken him in the summer, but you decided to take your own manager and stay with him. And Middlesbrough gave him an opportunity. So Middlesbrough, I'm talking about from the position of Middlesbrough, not to the denigration of Wolves. I don't think it's a good job. I think your club is in decline. I think the ownership model is changing its direction. I think your best players are being sold, and you've been circling the drain pipe for relegation for the last couple of years. So that's why I think it's not a great job. Looking at the obligations that he had upon him, he took a contract with Middlesbrough, who gave him an opportunity. His career wasn't going in the right direction because they'd been relegated from the Premier League, relegated from the Championship, so his currency was diminished. The owner of Middlesbrough put him in a position, backed him, gave him support, allowed him to bring his backroom staff, and has created a framework around which Rob can be successful in. And the reward for that is the first opportunity that comes along that suits Rob Edwards better, he jumps. And I think that's wrong. And if you think it's right, then that's the difference between you and I.
Would you maybe phrase it differently, that Wolves is a crap job?
I think it's a crap job. I do.
I agree with the ownership. He's a mess. Like, Jeff Shea does need to go.
Well, then, so we're halfway in the same place then, aren't we?
But the reason is, what about Michael Beale? Wouldn't a Michael Beale love to take the job now if he was offered it?
Well, I said the same thing about Michael Beale. I said the same thing about, you can have Michael Beale if you want. You can have the same outcomes that Rangers had. I said the same thing about Michael Beale leaving Queen's Park Rangers, who did the same similar thing, which was doing the dance of the seven veils for the fans, and then decided he was going to do precisely what he wanted. There has to be something in life more than just yourself. You do have some degree of responsibility. I do agree with that. Charity begins at home. You should look after yourself, and there's nothing wrong with bettering yourself. If indeed going to Wolves is a better job for a club that's in decline against a club that's perhaps in ascendancy.
And if he does keep us up, maybe not, but if he does, then he will better his career going forward.
That's a fair point.
If he does leave Wolves, we like you mean, fair play, good luck. Well, thanks for.
But if he goes to Wolves and you guys sink like the proverbial stone.
Then he's one of our own, so we would.
Oh, he's not one of your own. I took him on loan at Palace years ago. He's not one of your own. He played for you for 100 games. He's not one of your own.
he was interim manager not so long back.
Oh, right, okay. There's one of your own then.
But you don't want to rephrase what you said earlier, that Wolves is a crap job.
I don't think it's a great job.
Right.
In comparison to the job that he has, which is a football club that's sitting on top of the Championship, going forward with a chairman that I think has fundamental decency in his DNA, that stayed with the football club for 30 years and supported it through times and evolved this football club to different levels. Okay, they've been challenged out of the Premier League for 4 or 5 seasons now. Do I think Steve Gibson is a better owner than what they've got in at Wolves?
James,
Yeah.